welcome to Fondy Famous. I'm your host, Kelly Northley. Today's feature is brought to you by Steve Works Builders. Thank you, Steve. And today I'm here with Jolene, the Executive Director of the Women's Fund in Fond du Lac. And she and I have done a few things together, and it's been fabulous. And just, if you know her and see her energy, she is just wonderful to work with. So anyway.
You're kind, Kelly.
Some days.
So much fun to work with you.
It was a lot.
This is almost exactly, it was exactly
a year ago.
Almost a year ago, yeah. I remember because I was new in my role as executive director, and I said, I want to meet women from across the community, from all different backgrounds. You were going with Fondy Famous at the time.
I don't remember how we connected. It was just, you had reached out or something.
I said, look, there's this incredible woman that is, making her waves on social media. I want to get to know her.
Yeah. And then we came up with this idea to meet 20 women in February.
Because it was our 20th anniversary.
Yep.
So we went out, we said we want to meet 20 women of impact. We want to hear their hopes, their dreams. What do they want to see for bold change in this Fond du Lac area for women and girls? And the conversations that came from that, it was insightful, it was inspiring.
Yes.
I loved it.
It was a really incredible thing to be a part of, and I'll leave that there, but it was very good.
Well, and I want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Because I think something that you do really good at is uplifting people, being able to provide a platform for people to share their stories. I mean, just like we're doing here. And so thank you for being that voice in the community.
Appreciate that, thank you. Okay, so tell us, what do you do at the Women's Fund, and what is the Women's Fund doing for Fond du Lac?
Yeah, well, so as we mentioned, we chose the 20 women because it was our 20th anniversary this last year. So in 2004, and I bring this up, our founding, because the work that the Women's Fund has done throughout the Fond du Lac area is storied, and I know that I stand on the shoulders of many visionary women and men. We have men on our board, and other women's funds across the state have told me that they are sort of jealous of that. So it's really neat that we have. For a long time, we know that if we want to uplift women and girls, we need all voices at the table.
Right.
And so back in 2004, 4 incredible women really came together with a vision. And there was a lot more. From my understanding, they got together and they galvanized a whole group from across Fond du Lac area. And they said, we are seeing women in poverty around us. We are seeing some things that we feel like women and girls, we continue to see, and in fact today in 2025, there is still a gap when it comes to pay, when it comes to women in certain career areas, etc. And they said, what can we do? Our event that we're going to talk about in a little bit that's coming up here in just a couple of weeks is called Power of the Purse. And what's so unique is that at this time, which, I would have hoped that we could say this was 100 years ago, but, 20 years ago, which seems such a short time, it's where women really, I think, felt that they had that power of the purse.
Right.
And so they were exploring ways, how can we come together? Because of course, you and I can each give $20, can each give $100 to something we care about. But imagine now, if 50 of us come together and give $100, if 100 of us come together and give what we can, now, look at what we can do, and sort of the pot of money we can do to put towards an initiative, a program, or supporting a nonprofit that's doing incredible work. So at its founding, the Women's Fund has been about practicing collective philanthropy and shining a light on some of the things that perhaps people aren't always talking about because of the stigma. I'll give an example. The Women's Fund, one of our trademark programs that we brought to Fond du Lac was under the initiative called Fond du Lac Says No More, and a Green Dot training. And and real quick, I'll go into this because at the time when we looked at the data, and I'm really proud of the Women's Fund that we look at the data. Where are the gaps for women and girls? What do we need to, again, bring extra attention to? And they found that there was more domestic violence incidents in Fond du Lac than in the entire city of Green Bay.
Wow.
Yeah. So And yet that wasn't really being talked about. Right. So this is where the Women's Fund says, we are not afraid to have courageous conversations. And so with the support of our donors, our supporters, we're really grateful that we then implemented and got a lot of different community organizations together, from the police department, from SSM Health, from the county, and we implemented a bystander intervention training. I'm excited to share, this hasn't been announced yet, but I'm excited to share that this bystander training, which has provided training for free throughout this entire community, part of what the Women's Fund does is we try to find our community partners where it makes sense for them to sort of take on something if we've proven its success. So I can share with you that
Give the inside scoop
I am. That Solutions Center is now going to be the lead on the Green Dot training. So they have a prevention educator that is going out in the community, and we thought this makes a lot of sense. They are working already with individuals, women with a domestic violence shelter. Yep. This makes sense. Right. So it frees us up then to take on new initiatives. Okay. So that's exciting. Again, we provide, since our founding, grants to the local area, and our grants, I think, are really unique and strategic. And I'm excited in this last year, we've done some unique things with our grants. Can I share a little bit?
I would love to hear that.
So of course, so we continue to have what we are calling our Community Catalyst grants. And we want to be sure that we're hearing from our community partners, what are some needs, what are some gaps, and how can we meet those needs where they're at? But then, we also wanted to inspire our local community to find creative partnerships, because we all know we don't want people working in silos. And I think as a Women's Fund, this is unique for us, because I think women are often innately really good at seeing creative connections. And so we have an innovative grant that is a 3-year, we call a strategic grant, and it is meant to help create, explore, and then solidify connections, new partnerships in the community. So I'm proud to say, for example, one of our first strategic grants was to Fondy Cares. So Fondy Cares, they provide mental health support for our students in the Fond du Lac School District. A shout out to them, they do a phenomenal job. And what we found is that they felt like they had a need for group counseling for girls, and they didn't have a provider that was doing that. So our grant helped them provide local community providers that could provide small group counseling for girls.
Okay, and
really,
the grant is covering that?
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
Yes. And then that also inspired some different mental health agencies to come together, and now that has expanded. So it's just really unique, and I'm proud to say how the Women's Fund has been able to, again, help a program that already was doing good work, was proving itself, but now expand its connection to be even stronger.
Right.
So,
we grow better by growing together. And yeah,
well said. Well said. What I was so grateful to talk about is when I'm out in the community and I'm hearing about the needs that don't fit nice and neat into a timeline. Right. I don't want to have them say, oh, sorry. So what we created with the Women's Fund, with our board of directors, what we call flash grants. Okay. And it's meant to provide that flash or that spark inspiration at that time of need. So what this means is that throughout the year, if a board member hears about, or someone in the community has something, our nonprofit partners has a need, and it's for a small amount. So typically, our other grants can be, up to a couple $1,000s. Our strategic grant that I was talking about earlier is $5,000, and we commit to that over 3 years to help solidify that partnership, because we know that creating partnerships can take time. Yep. And so the flash grant is meant to be up to $500. Okay. But sometimes that small amount of money is what is needed. Yep. So I'm really proud of this Women's Fund that we've stepped up in this way, and actually it aligns with the data nationally will say that women's funds are known to provide money quicker than the average, funding partner. And I think part of that is, I know, so as a Women's Fund, we have even our own data and research committee. Volunteers, if you want to join, would love to invite you on that. So we do closely look at the data. But sometimes because of lived experiences, I think women have this, we might call it in everyday terms like a gut feeling of something. But I think it comes from our lived experience shows us we understand the needs. and we see people struggling around us. We see the challenges, and we might not always have the right words, or there might not be data yet telling us that this is a challenge, but we see it, we hear about it. So I think part of that is why sometimes women's funds are willing to take a chance to support something before maybe traditional philanthropy may be there. And so anyways, I'm just really proud of sort of these different ways that the Women's Fund is uplifting the community. So that's kind of our bread and butter. And then one thing I'm so excited that we began this last year, it was something that just inspires me. You know, when you look around this world and you feel like, you know, there are challenges in the world and it feels sometimes tough. This program has been a light for me, and I'll tell you why. So it's called Girl-Powered Giving. And, you know, often we hear in the community, we want more young people to step up and get involved. And we want, you know, our service clubs or places that are looking for volunteers are, you know, consistently, you know, looking at how they can get more. And so we said, as a Women's Fund, if we're not thoughtfully raising up that next generation of female philanthropists, it might not just happen. I mean, I think inherently people have willingness and a need to give back, but we may not always know how.
Right.
So the Women's Fund we had our first inaugural class of Girl-Powered Giving, and we invited high school students from across the county, from all the different high schools. We even opened up to if someone was homeschooled. We didn't have anyone apply that was homeschooled, but and what we did is we reached out to educators, school counselors, and we said, we're looking for those high school girls, junior or seniors, not necessarily that are the valedictorian. It could be, but we're looking for those juniors and seniors that maybe are those quiet leaders, those students that have a heart for the community, maybe are not always in the limelight, but these are the ones that we want to connect with and invite to this leadership program and to help them give a voice. And maybe they've experienced some unique challenges in their high school already that they could provide insight. So that's what we did. So in this last fall, we again invited our first class. Thank you to the Children's Museum who donated their space for us. And so it was 3 full Saturdays from the morning until later in the day. And what the high school girls did, what was so inspiring is first they came together and they shared some of the challenges they see from girls their own age around them. Then they shared what are some of the challenges they see from their community, their school, their families.
What were some of the challenges?
Yes. And then the last one, I'll just say though quick, is what are their own? You know, we couldn't just start out with, tell us your own challenges. You know, we wanted to kind of, and not a surprise. Probably you could guess what some of them are, but not a surprise that concerns about mental health, anxiety came up, social media pressures, and along with that, body image, healthy use of social media, I will say, you know, sort of, and then also they talked about their friends sometimes not being able to afford things because of financial, not having the money.
Right.
So then what these high school girls did, and now they, you know, identified and, you know, talked about, there were so many things that brought up. What was really neat then, that's informing us as a Women's Fund. Again, in traditional research, we're not often hearing the high school voices.
Right.
So it was so inspiring.
And they see that. I mean, they're living it. So
Exactly.
To hear from.
Exactly. So then we challenged them to coalesce around a specific focus area. And because of our supporters, our donors, we had provided them with a $5,000 grant. So they knew that they had ultimately this $5,000 grant that they could give out, but they had to focus on what that, you know, what is that going to be, that focus area for them. Right. They decided it would be for moms in poverty and their children. It was kind of fun because I thought if we help a mom, it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal, their mom and their child. And so we advertised the grant application. But before I say that, it's not that we just, you know, we said, well, here's our Women's Fund grant application that's tried and true. We said to them, okay, you know, we want you to really take control and to be empowered to make the decisions. The goal of this program was to help young women see themselves as decision makers, change makers, and leaders. And to know that they have a voice that people in the community are willing to take seriously. So they had to wrestle with what questions we want to ask. do we want to prioritize a program that already has been long-lasting, that's proven its success? Do we want to prioritize a program that maybe is newer, that has potential? Is it the number of women and girls that it impacts, or is it the depth of impact, even if it's fewer? These are the same things the Women Fund wrestles with.
Right.
So it was so inspiring to give that, ability to these young women to do that. So
what did it end up going towards?
So then we advertised out to the community. We had 13 nonprofits that applied. They interviewed each one. So now these young people were not only hearing about that specific program, they were also learning about that nonprofit. And the feedback was they're going to be able to share. They had sometimes no idea that these local resources existed. And they said, we're going to go back and we're going to share this with our friends, our family. So now we have a network of young people caring about this. And what they ended up giving to, they decided to split their funds in two, and they funded Youth for Christ has a teen parent program. So if a high school girl becomes pregnant, they have an incredible mentoring program. And so they gave part of the funds there, and then also to New Beginnings Pregnancy Center with houses women with child that maybe don't have another safe place to go. So there was a lot of good. If you're listening, there were so many great proposals that came out. And same with, the Women's Fund. We just had our Catalyst grant, which is our sort of our general grants to the community. We had close to $50,000 in requests, and unfortunately, we are going to be able to fund only a fraction of that. The needs are great, but this is what inspires me. It is programs like Girl Powered Giving, where we are helping young people to know that leadership is not just about a title, it's about how you give back, how you show up in the community, and support one another, share about resources. So I'm excited. We're going to highlight that at our upcoming event, Power the Purse, which I'm excited to talk about.
Yep.
And I was going to, if we have time, maybe let's do this at the end, shall we? This was part of the Girl Powered Giving, where we asked them some quiz questions on the status of women and girls. And perhaps maybe I'll share it now, because I think it underlines the work and why it is so important that a Women Fund exists. And so here's what we, shall I ask you? Are you open to a quiz?
Yep.
Okay, so what percentage of 10-year-old girls, this is kind of heavy actually, now that, what percentage of 10-year-old girls are afraid of being fat? Is it A, 19%, B, 81%, C, 48%, or D, 62%? What is it? So, percentage of 10-year-old girls are afraid of being fat. I wish it was 0%.
Yeah.
Darn it, where's that choice?
Right, I'm not sure, I don't know. 60, I would imagine.
Yeah, 81%.
Wow.
And this is from the Eating Disorder Foundation that came out with these statistics. And I think part of that goes to already 10-year-olds are on social media.
Right.
And maybe if they're not even on social media, are their siblings on social media?
Right.
Are they sort of seeing these messages? Okay, next one. Female-headed households make up 28% of all households, but I just gave the answer actually. The question was, what percentage of those living in poverty in our community are female-headed households? I just gave the answer. So
28%.
Yeah, hey, great job. So the answer is, so they make up 20% of all households, but 59% of all households in poverty. Now, if we look at households with minor children, that number increases to 64% of households in poverty are headed by a single mother.
Wow.
And that was from the U.S. Census Bureau. Here's the next one. At what age does a girl's self-esteem peak? Is it A? What's your guess?
7.
You're close to it. The questions were, the answers, choices were at age 15, age 13, age 11, age 9. It probably is even lower than that, but 9 is what was identified. And this was a New York University Child Study Center that came up that asked this. But that at age 9, a girl's self-esteem peaks.
Right.
And they're just getting into the potential of their leadership. Still they're exploring the world of careers in front of them. this is why the work we do, I think, I just feel so inspired. Maybe we'll do one more. In 2017, so this is a little bit later, and this comes from a survey. This was by Alverno College. They do some research on the status of girls in Wisconsin. There's a report that came out. So this is in 2017. What percentage of Wisconsin girls felt sad or hopeless for 2 weeks in a row within the last year? A, 13%, B, 23%, C, 38%, or D, 53%?
C.
You're correct. It's C, 38%, but that was up from 33% when they did this study prior. Now this compares to, at the time, now this is already 2017, 16% of boys. So I think it's important, you know, the Women's Fund, we believe that we need to lift up boys and girls.
Right.
We're not trying to exclude boys, but the reality is when the data is telling us that there is something happening for girls, that their self-esteem is less than boys of the same age, when we know that, again, the pay equity is still different when we look at corporate boards, you know, what is going on with this data? And if we don't have a specific focus, that's not necessarily going to change. So, you know, again, one of the things sometimes the criticism, if I may say, of the Women's Fund is, well, we believe we should help all. Of course, we're not against that.
Right.
We are
You
just
have to specify somewhere.
Yes, and if we don't focus on a specific issue, a specific, you know, population, how are we ever going to help them to kind of raise up and identify what's going on here?
Right.
So that's what I believe in. That's what I'm so proud of this Women's Fund. And sort of this brings us to why our signature event is something that I'm so thrilled that this community has committed to. We've had it for, you know, this will be our 21st year, having our Power of the Purse. And our focus at this event is bringing together people throughout this community, those that want to see change, those that want to commit to uplifting women and girls, and saying, we are not powerless here to just say, you know, society is hard. Yeah, it is hard in society. We have a lot of difficult issues facing us, but these are people coming together to say, we want to learn, we want to do something about it, and even just by showing up and, you know, sitting across the table and having lunch with someone and getting to know their story and why they care, I think it helps inspire you. You know, you share that energy of, okay, we can do. We might not be able to solve it all in one day,
Right.
even in 1 year.
And get it.
Exactly. And so.
So when is your event?
Yeah. So April 23rd. This year, our event is always in the spring in April, at least as far as I know, that's when it always has been. And this year, April 23rd falls the day before the NFL draft comes to Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
And so knowing,
2 for 1.
Yes, so here's a really unique thing. And first of all, before I share something that I'm so excited for this audience to hear, if you haven't heard yet, we are bringing back our keynote speaker model. So when I say keynote speaker, our outside keynote speaker. So a lot of women's funds do feature, you know, someone that is inspiring, that has really been a trailblazer, and from outside the area that can kind of come in and galvanize and excite people, inspire us. But quite frankly, because the Women's Fund, you know, we're always looking at how we can make sure our dollars are being stretched to the most. We went away for a couple of years of bringing in that speaker because typically speakers ask for quite a bit of money to come in. And not that we should honor that, because a woman has her own worth and we want to, you know, pay her for what she's worth. But we found someone that, get this, is not only just this incredible woman that has achieved so much, but she has a heart to give back. She believes in the Women's Fund, and she is donating her speaker fees to this organization.